Ryan here from Blue Hill Wildlife Nursery. Today we're going to take a look at persimmons, seedling persimmons such as these, and we're going to take a look at grafted, what I planted, how I planted it, why I planted it the way I did. You can see these seedlings, I did run them in tubes. You know, they're fairly inexpensive. These are BH Hoosier. It's all grown from female seed. I know I'm gonna run 50% or better as far as getting females out of them. And I spaced them close. Spacing's probably 8 to 10 feet all the way around, and they run for a long way behind me. But, you know, a good way to space them, you know, when planting seedlings is like that. If you can graft, well then, you know, it'd be very easy to do a bark graft and change any males you get in there over to a female. But if you don't, you're still going to wind up with a good amount of females. You can see they're growing in tubes tube wise. You can see I got switch planted there. You know, you're going to want to keep you know, the ground cover around the tube down, or it's going to be issues, you know, with the voles and moles and varmints trying to eat them. Let's take a look at grafted. And those trees, the seedlings there we were just taking a look at, I planted those last spring, so that they've been through 2 growing seasons there. Now we're looking at grafted. These were planted this spring. This here would have been, you know, you can see there in the cage, it's, you know, where that growth started right there. Would have been about a 2-foot tall tree, but you can see it's put on about 36-40 inches of growth. This particular one there's a deer magnet. And you can see I caged these. Grafted persimmons, you know, any persimmons, you know, you want this growth, you know, this growth growing up nice and hard and off. You can see the bugs been chewing on my leaves, I don't care. But my growth's nice and hard and off here because it's late September. We're gonna get a frost soon. Anything on a persimmons that doesn't harden off and you get a frost, dies all the way back. So it's important that you're not fertilizing in the fall. Don't fertilize persimmons in the fall. You don't want to push growth out on them in the fall, or you're going to have issues, especially when growing, you know, up out of the native range, such as me. You can see I still use the weed mat in there. I still use the stone over top the weed mat. I've kept the growth down, you know, and you know that 2-foot tall tree is now, you know, 5.5-foot tall tree, and will, you know, I mean, that was freshly planted. That thing's gonna put on a good 4 or 5 foot of growth next year, because I will fertilize. Persimmons, if you read anything about them, they say they don't like nitrogen. They do like nitrogen to grow. They don't like nitrogen to produce fruit, and I'll hit on that a little bit later. You can see this here is a meter, you know, and I don't know if something hit the central leader there on me and made it bush all over, but you know, it put on about a foot of growth all the way around. But you can see I still utilize the window screen, stone, weed mat, weed competition going. And I'll get in here this winter and prune that tree up to a central leader. I'll get rid of everything and I'll keep that one central leader there to, you know, push up next year and make me a nice tree. This here's Elmo. You can see the bugs are chewing on Elmo too. Now this would have been a little bit bigger tree when I planted it. Looks like it would have been a 3 to 4 foot. You know, and it's pushed about 30 inches of growth, and it's up there about 7 foot tall. When I'm planting, you know, I definitely make amendments to my soil. The thing you need to understand, you can also really shoot yourself in the foot when making amendments to the soil at the time of planting. You can see my soil there is, you know, just clay, a little bit of loam, shale. So these are pretty much just growing in a shale bank with a little bit of loam in there. That I make amendments. You know, 2 handfuls. I'll dig that hole the entire size of what you see there, about 2 foot across, 2 foot across, and about 2 foot down. I'll I'll do 2 handfuls of pelletized lime on that pile of dirt that I have laying next to the tree. 2 handfuls of pelletized lime on that dirt, mix it in. I've been using a lot of chicken manure, or I've used 0-20-20 in the past. That works. Chicken manure here, we're going to get a lot of micronutrients mixed into that soil also. And then with my clay shale, that little bit of wood chips in there too is going to help break that up too. But again, I'm only, a hole, like I said, it's that big, 2 foot by 2 foot and 2 foot deep. I'll mix a spade shovel full, that amount, no more, or you're shooting yourself in the foot, into the soil on that pile of dirt. Mix it all the way through, and when you plant the tree, and put it back in there. Planting depth on persimmons, persimmon roots are black, so you can very easily distinguish where the root ends and the tree starts, and where it was originally planted at. That you want to plant, soil's going to sink, so you want to plant, an inch up onto that, up onto the tree, because soil is going to, sink down in as the summer goes on. You can see, what is this one? Another meter. I like meter just because it stands right over there. And, meter literally drops for us all of bow season here, starting October into mid-November. This year would have been, you can see it, that would have been right there. So this tree was probably about, maybe 18 inches at most, and put on about, I don't know, probably about 4 foot of growth. Meter is one of them that likes to be stout, and that tree you're purchasing, a lot of time they're only available in 1 to 2 foot, 2 to 3 foot. And I make trees in the 3 to 4 foot. I make trees that size because you get all the roots with the trees. The roots aren't root bound. They're a good solid tree to plant and get, good growth that hardens off. Again, planting something that's root bound or missing a lot of roots, and it doesn't leaf out till, if you don't leaf out till July 4th and after is about the cutoff line that you need to leaf out and get to growing by to harden off when you're growing up out of the native range of persimmons. Fertilization, again, not going to do it in the fall. However, next spring, that's probably what you're going to see me use. About a spade shovel full of that. We're on a little bit of side hill here. I'll sprinkle that up there on the upper side of that stone, let that leach down through, and that's it. That's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to push great growth and have a good, healthy tree. It says this tin cup. Tin cup's got a lot of vigor to it. You can see this was a bigger sized tree here that I planted. Was probably, probably almost 4 foot tall, 3.5 foot tall. And, shot up there that it's about, I don't know, 7 foot tall or so. Tin cup, great tree up out of western New York. But October, mainly an October type tree, with maybe 10%, 15% going into November. And here I stuck in Miller's. Again, you can see this one created multiple branches in there. I still have a good central leader in there going, and I'll take, as with any tree, I don't really leave lateral limbs below, really around 5 foot is where I start making lateral limbs. But again, you can get a good idea of my dirt. And again, I want to stress that you fertilize. I'm going to grow a tree. I want to get it up there 12 foot tall, 15 foot tall even. I'm going to fertilize for the first 3 or 4 years, and then I'm going to stop. Or if I do, it's just very, very light amount. Persimmons produce fruit on the wood that they push that spring is where flowers happen. If you fertilize and you're just pushing a ton of growth, it tends to drop fruit and not put not put the energy into fruit and want to just go and grow because of the nitrogen. Don't overfeed, and really after about that 3-4 year mark, you get a good solid tree there. Don't feed. Thanks for watching.